Picture this, a small town in Missouri, a bunch of teenagers looking for something to do, and a mascot clown with a chainsaw. Sounds like a setup for a very cliche horror movie or the bloodiest slasher of the year. Welcome to Clown in a Cornfield. This movie is based on Adam Cesar's cult horror novel, and it's directed by Eli Craig, the guy who gave us Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. So you already know it's not going to be your average masked killer movie. It's mixing over-the-top gore with a little bit of satire and some surprisingly sharp commentary about small-town America. This is a movie I've heard nothing about, and honestly, I don't even know how I came across it today. But let's watch it and answer the real question. Is Clown in a Cornfield actually a good slasher movie? And is Frando destined to join the ranks of terrifying modern slashers like Art the Clown? Or is this just another creepy clown slasher movie that disappoints audiences? Let's find out.
Very funny, man.
I've created a little bit of a review criteria for slasher movies. I have a few categories here and I'm going to be rating the movie on these categories out of 10. So these are the categories. Number 1, our killer, the kills, the suspense, and the overall vibes. Before we rank this movie out of 10 in those categories, I'm going to give you a really quick review on this movie. If you want a really quick review, this was an unexpected gem. I had a lot of fun with this movie. This movie subverts your expectations, even though the setup seems very cliche. There are things in this movie they just flip and they subvert what you're expecting, and because of that, the director knows exactly what he's doing, and this movie is just a lot of fun overall. The first thing I wanted to say is the Shudder intro scares me every single time. It doesn't like make me jump, but it just gives me the creeps. You know, the little dun dun. I don't know why, it puts me on edge, and I feel like it set me up perfectly for a movie like this. Obviously, every single time you see the Shudder logos for a horror movie, but you know what I mean. I think the first thing to say is that this movie definitely goes by the books, because we have a creepy house, we have a single father, and they move to a new town where something creepy is going on. But at the same time, whilst you think you know what you're getting yourself into, there are things in this movie, as I stated earlier, that subvert your expectations. The kills are extremely fun, the setup is extremely fun, and the actual clown itself is very weird and it's very fun. But I don't want to say why it's fun because I'm going to spoil something about the movie. And one thing I really love about slasher movies is questioning if the killer is actually human or not human. For example, in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the killer is just Winnie the Pooh itself. It's not a human with a mask on, whereas in like Scream, for example, it's somebody with a mask on. And I'm not going to tell you what this movie is, but again, it's really fun. Massive props to Katie Douglas, who I feel like carried this movie with her performance. I feel like she had a very difficult role to play because, as I said, this movie feels quite cliche at times, and she delivered a performance that actually made this feel really like strong. And I think her performance just carried this movie like the entire way. And there's another character in this movie that is quite funny. I think he's like meant to be based on like Elon Musk or whatever. He's an absolute degen, an absolute loser. He looks like Elon Musk. And whenever I saw him, I was like, is this meant to be like social commentary, or was this like an absolute accident? Whenever you watch this movie, if you do, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But now let's judge this movie based on the categories that I mentioned earlier. Our killer, is he a good killer in the slasher movie? I would say the problem with this movie is that we just don't get a lot of time with the killings. This movie is 90 minutes long, and I would say about 10 to 15 minutes of this movie is actually like the horror, and everything else is kind of like character development and world development. And whilst that is important, I feel like there needs to be a really good balance, because you don't want to spend the entire movie just like building a world and then only getting a few kills and then everything wraps up nicely at the end, because you're going into this movie not for a really detailed and deep storyline. You're just going into this movie to have fun. So overall, we don't... The storyline about the killer is very vague. We know very little about him, but at the same time, we don't even see that much of the killer, maybe towards the end, but like for the first 14 minutes of the movie, nothing happens. And for that, I'm going to say 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 feels like it's kind of fair. What about the kills? There's one kill, a little bit of a spoiler if you care, but we see somebody benching weights, and we see the clown go behind the person benching, and he puts a saw on the bottom of the bench, and as he's unable to lift the weight back up, the saw cuts his head off. It's actually really fun, and the movie, whenever it actually shows us the kills, has a lot of fun with the kills. I would have liked more, obviously, when you compare it to something like Terrifier. It's a lot more gory, it's a lot more like blah, but this movie it has fun with the kills. It shows us some stuff, so I feel like 6 out of 10 is a fair score for the kills in this movie. What about the suspense? I would say the suspense in this movie is very little. I was not at the edge of my seat at all. Nothing made me jump, nothing made my heart like kind of race throughout this movie. So I would say the suspense is not really here in this movie. So I would say a 2 out of 10 for the suspense. And the overall vibes for this movie, I actually really enjoyed it. I caught myself like an hour into this movie, like with my mouth open like this, watching it, and I think I was just really invested. Not because it's this like incredible movie that everybody needs to watch. It's just fun, and it understands what it's trying to do, and it gets the things right that it needs to get right, and it's not very deep. It's just fun. I'm probably going to forget about this movie, and because of that, I think it deserves like a 7.5 out of 10 for the overall vibes. It's a fun movie. I'm not going to say it's an amazing good movie, but it's fun, and I think you should definitely check it out if you're looking for something to watch with your friends, something that you want to kind of like switch off to and just have a good time with. I think this movie is the right film to watch if you're looking to switch off, and I highly recommend it for that. One thing I completely forgot to say about this movie is that I feel like it's extremely evident how old the writers were for this movie, because some of the writing in this movie was absolutely horrific. Never prank the prankster, or he's being a text bitch. It's like loads of old men were in a room and are like, what do 15-year-olds or 18-year-olds sound like? And so many times they mention like Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and they're like, this video has gone viral with 3,000 views. Just, you know the way like old people talk about like Facebook or whatever, or what they think like Instagram or YouTube is like. This is what the writing felt like at times in this movie. The writing isn't incredible, but again, when you're going into a slasher movie, you're not really there for the writing. Sometimes bad writing is what makes the movie actually more fun and more memorable, but like I just think some of the lines in this movie were quite painful to sit through, but it's fine. I'm not going to judge it harshly on that. I just kind of thought I should highlight that because it was quite funny. So have you watched Clown in a Cornfield? What did you think of this movie if you watched it? If you didn't watch it, I do recommend that you check it out because it's quite fun. And if you do watch it, please let me know your opinions and let me know what you want me to watch next, because realistically, I'll watch anything. Well, almost anything. Most stuff. Kind. But thank you so much for watching. That's everything I have to say about Clown in a Cornfield. I was pleasantly surprised. That was quite fun, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.